Hello, everyone. I'm Daniel, and I'm back again with SuperFang99. We are here to talk about the second scenario of the Innsmouth conspiracy, which is called The Vanishing of Elina Harper. And if you didn't know the end of the last scenario, you wake up and are with Elina Harper. She's kind of asking you about your memories and whatnot, and you get transported back to, what do we say, 5 weeks later? Or earlier?
That
And
yes.
we're back in Innsmouth, so we actually get to see the town of Innsmouth in this particular scenario. So let's go for it.
Yeah. So to start off in the campaign, I just wanted to mention this because this is one of the longer intros into a scenario that we've ever had, almost comparable to the prologue scenario of the Circle Undone, because it literally goes through every single location to tell you what Innsmouth is like.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I don't know if they had to do this, to be honest, but it is some, I guess, lore, quote unquote, about Innsmouth. Not really. It's more like descriptions. Um, but yeah, it is very long, and we don't have to go into it too much detail.
So the reason why
But
they do this, I think, is because the people that they mention for each of these locations potentially show up in the scenario.
correct. I imagine that what they wanted to do is because they wanted they wanted you to get more knowledge about Innsmouth, its locations, and its people, so that you have an association with the main mechanic of the scenario, which will happen in a second.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, as we stated earlier, Agent Dawson can now tell us to spend experience. He just like, you can spend experience now. Um, and we'll get into it. All right. So we got this real, not big, but pretty sprawling map. We're going to start at the Innsmouth Square. And we have a little bus stop here. Importantly, though, we have to do something for setup. So let's just do it. Our goal is to find Elena Harper, but someone has kidnapped her and is hiding her in a specific location in Innsmouth. And so we will need to create a, what do they call it? They call it something. The suspect
The
in the hideout.
leads, yeah, the leads deck, right?
The leads deck. That's right. And so we can, if we go to Tabletop Simulator, we have a button to just do this. So I'm gonna click it.
All right,
All
so
right.
don't look here.
Don't look here. This card does tell you whom each of the possible subjects and each of the possible hideouts are, which is nice. Obviously, 5 of these are not the actual ones. 5 of each of them are going to be in this leads deck, and 1 of each is the true culprit and location that has kidnapped her.
Mm-hmm.
Gotta
So
find
all
that
of
out.
these locations are not the ones that are on the screen down here. They're all stuck in the leads deck. Yeah.
Correct. And so, just to get the cat out of the elephant in the room, this is not exactly similar, but it is very similar to a particular board game known as Clue or Cluedo if you're in the UK,
Mm-hmm.
where you are trying to weed out the suspects and the locations that aren't the actual true culprit by trying to reveal them from the leads deck. Effectively, it's like, I guess, it's as if one player had all of the knowledge in Clue, and you're just trying to be like, is it this one? Is it this one? Is it this one? Um,
Right. Yeah, I mean, imagine that you're like going around town asking about what happened and you're eliminating possible suspects and locations, I guess, is kind of the idea.
Correct. Very classic investigatorial work.
Mm-hmm.
Alrighty.
So how do we do that?
Yeah. So on our act, we have the search for Agent Harper. We only have 1 act. There is another act card, but it doesn't exist right now. As a free triggered ability, investigators spend X per clues as a group to parlay. Reveal the top X cards of the leads deck to a maximum of 3 and draw 1 of them. Shuffle the rest back into the leads deck along with the top card of the encounter deck. Wah wah.
Mhm.
Group limit once per round. And your objective is you may advance at the end of any round, but you will have to make an accusation at that point. So make sure you have enough information to make that guess if you're curious as well. I believe on So I usually use this. I believe that's what it's supposed to be. But you can keep track of the ones that you do not or know that are not the suspects and hideouts
Mhm.
by like marking them as on an X.
Yep. So
Wait, sorry. Before we continue, do you want to give a guess on who it is and where it is?
sure. I
I always
will,
like to.
having played this one already earlier, actually,
Oh.
I will not pick that because in case you, well, no, I should
Oh,
not.
no.
Okay, that's okay. Never mind. I'm not going to say anything because then,
Yes.
yeah, you can make the
Well,
guess.
okay. I will pick Brian Burnham on the Shoreward Slopes. There we go.
Okay.
That is my guess, and we'll see what happens.
Okay.
So, yeah, as we said, we need to spend clues to reveal cards and draw cards from the lead stack. Every time you reveal, no matter how many clues you spent, you always shuffle the top card in the encounter deck in. So it's going to get harder as the game goes on.
And it's sort of to your best interest to wait until you have 3 per clues.
Correct. It's effectively more efficient. You get more information for only one encounter card.
Right.
But also, it might take more time. So.
Right. And later you may just need to do it because you need to do it.
Yeah. And because it's only group limit, it's group limit once per round. So you have a limited number of attempts.
Exactly. Okay. Yeah, I mean, it is, like I said, you're investigating. So the fact that this is a parlay is not actually mechanically meaningless either. So we'll see that in the encounter deck.
Yep. All right. So we can look at the agenda, or we can go to locations, whatever you would like to go first.
Agenda doesn't say much, right?
Nope. It has this forced effect about defeating suspect enemies other than the kidnapper. Basically, if you do kill them, you can say that they're out for your blood, which will matter at some point. Actually, I've never done this.
I don't think there's any reason to do this, right? Unless you just need a bunch of clues really quickly, I guess.
Correct. Yeah, because effectively, it's like instead of doing the thing on them to get their clues, you can just kill them.
Yeah, it's not a great idea.
Exactly. And making them out for blood does do something. I just can't remember.
Yeah, it does show up later in the campaign.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Let's go to these locations to start, I guess. We have the Innsmouth Square. 4-shot, 1 per clues. It is central. You can resign as an action, or you can spend 2 resources as a free trigger to move to a connecting Innsmouth location. That is pretty nice.
Especially since there's this one little choke point that you might need to move through quickly, although the other places do fill in if you're able to get some leads.
Correct. All right, let us go to the Marsh Refinery, I guess. 1 trial, 1 per clues, double action to draw 4 cards. Limit once per game. That's pretty good.
It's good rate. If you have a couple actions to spare, 1 trout also very nice. Everyone can contribute here, probably.
Sure.
So again, you'll notice there's a ton of connections on the bottom here. They're just not all in play yet.
Correct. All right, let's go to Innsmouth Harbor. 3 trial, 2 per clues. Forced. After you successfully investigate Innsmouth Harbor by 3 or more, look at the top cards of the lead stack, then shuffle the lead stack.
Huge.
So, huge, yes. And more valuable the earlier you do it, because in likelihood, if you do it later, you might just hit an encounter card on top and be like, oh, okay, I know what that is. But yeah, this is huge because it doesn't actually get any of them out, but it immediately gives you information if you didn't have it already. Obviously, it might say like it's not Barter's Merge twice, but it does give you information.
So that there's 2 per clues here, so there should be a few times you could pull this off if you are lucky enough or you have lockpicks. This is somewhere you can camp out pretty early. I think that's usually the way I play this one is you go over here first and then see how many clues you can get and maybe just investigate once per. Now, if you're only playing solo, it may not be something you can even do at all.
Albeit, obviously, you could still investigate it. You just won't get any clues, so it might not be worth it, but you could still do it if you really wanted to.
That's true. You're right. Now, if you are Stella Clark and you're trying to get clues by failing, maybe not the place for you.
Correct.
All right.
I got the Fish Street Bridge. 2 shroud, 1 per clues, double action to gain 4 resources. Not as good as draw 4 cards, but still really good.
Isn't that funny? They could have said like 5 resources,
game
right?
5. Game 5, I think, would have been like either equivalent.
Yeah. Once per game. Again, that is per investigator. So
yeah,
this is a nice side of the map.
Yeah, I love to just stick over here. Don't need to go to the rest.
Okay.
Got the Gilman House. 2 shroud, 1 per as an action. Heal 2 damage or 2 horror or any combination thereof. Limit once per game. Very nice.
Yeah, not bad. I would say that the damage in this scenario is much heavier than the horror, so maybe that.
That is true. All right, we got the little bookshop over here. 2 shroud, 2 per clues. Forced. After you fail a skill test while investigating the little bookshop, shuffle the top card of the encounter deck into the lead stack. That might not have helped with Stella.
Nope.
Oh God. That seems not good.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, I like to not just I like to just not go here. And finally, we have the first National Grocery, 3-shot 1 per clues as an action. Search top 6 cards of your deck for an item card to draw it. It's that's all right. They always have these actions that I never do because obviously you could whiff, but honestly, I don't even think it's worth it. But maybe it
No,
is. I don't
I
know.
mean, it's like a really bad backpack, right?
Yeah, like I guess in theory, like if you were gonna draw a card, it's like maybe this is better. But being able to whiff is like kind of unfortunate.
Yeah, I like that these are locations that have some nice positive effects on them that are very flavorful. Well, some of them are. I don't
Yeah,
know why the
I
little
don't know.
bookshop is haunted, but
You don't want to go in there.
the rest of them and like it can be useful, but the shrouds here are all very nice. The only one that's bad actually is the one you start on.
Yep. And the I like this layout because it definitely feels like Arkham.
Hmm.
In the Midnight Masks, where you have these locations where like, oh, I can do some extra things by like drawing cards, getting resources, healing stuff. Like a good way to sync actions if you're not doing anything, kind of thing.
Yeah, and as we'll see in a little bit with the encounter cards, sometimes you've got a round where you're like, best thing is not to move. So,
Right.
all
There
right,
you go.
uh, that was easy. So, what are we gonna do now? Let's maybe look at some things from the leads deck.
Yeah. Let's just start with the top one, I guess.
Sure.
Hey, it's Othera Gilman. That wasn't her, right? No, okay. What did I guess again? Brian Burnham. All
So
right.
we've got two types of things in the leads deck. We've got the enemies and we've got the suspects and the location. So you really don't really want to draw these
No,
enemies
you
because
don't.
they don't have victory points on them. They have victory
No.
0, and they take a one action to get one clue off of them.
It's honestly it's an abysmal rate. Um, I honestly don't understand why there isn't more of a reason to get these people. Like, and it's part of the reason why it's so valuable to do 2 or 3 cards at a time, especially early, because you want to fish for those locations that have victory on them.
Hmm. So I guess if you're Alessandra now, like this is maybe worth your time to pick up a clue. I don't know about on her, but some of them, if you aren't good at getting clues, then you can do the thing on the enemies, and that's like all right. But
Yeah,
I agree there's a little bit of a miss. Like the fact that they don't have victory and that you can't accelerate to getting the clues off is unfortunate.
yeah, agreed.
Maybe you
All
can
right.
do things like eavesdrop or whatever to get more clues off the location since they're in play. I don't know.
Yeah, it's always tough because they always spawn at places that don't have too many clues to begin with.
Hmm.
Also, so like,
Yeah. I mean, that's part of what they're here for, is to like give you more ways to get clues since these other ones on the map can get emptied out. But you know what can also do that? Locations.
with victory on them.
Yeah.
All right. Well, she goes here to the Gilman house, and then we'd shuffle a card in. Obviously, we won't do that right now,
Hmm.
but yeah. All
Let's
right. Shall we
look at
keep?
three at a time now, maybe.
All right.
Okay, we got some
All right.
locations.
Well, we're not in the shoreward slums, so that's me gone.
Okay.
But we got some locations. So we have the New Church Green, which I think goes here.
Yep.
3 Shroud, 2 per clues, and double action. If there are no clues here, you can look at the top card of the lead stack. If it does not have victory, discard it. That's a nice action.
Yeah. So if it's an encounter card, basically.
Yes, because normally you only draw one and add a new card. This is one of the few ways to actually get rid of cards in the lead stack, which can be nice.
Hmm.
And
Yep.
it has victory 1. All right, we got the Shoreward Slums, which goes all the way over here. And it is a 3 Shroud, 1 per location. It gets -2 Shroud for each Doom on it. And if you fail a skill test while investigating here, you place a Doom on it.
Hmm.
That's tough, because there's no way to get that Doom off besides the agenda advancing, I believe. So it's just a 5 Shroud, 1 per location with victory 1, which is not like insurmountable, but it is pretty
No,
good.
it's not unfair, but I mean, there's only 2 clues here and 2 players, so that's okay. But
Yep,
I think you want to avoid this if you can, or
if you can.
cheat the clues off some other way.
Yeah, or like try and time it where you're in the witching hour, maybe.
Yeah. Okay.
And we got Zadok Allen, so he goes into play in the Fish Street Bridge, aloof, and it's a parlay to test 3 agility to get a clue. And
Yeah.
by the way, Athera Gilman was to spend 3 resources.
Yeah. So he's, again, if you don't have other ways of using agility and even extra action, fine. But you probably have something better to do.
Agreed. All right, how many do you want this time?
2.
All right.
So remember, we're putting them all into play, but you really only get to choose one to draw.
Correct. All right, we got Sawbone Alley, which goes down over here.
Mhm.
2 shroud, 2 precludes. Each humanoid enemy at Sawbone Alley gets +2 fight and -2 evade. Victory 1.
I wonder if
This one
that
is
will
interesting.
matter later.
Absolutely. And we got the Into the Jail. So it goes down here. 4 shroud, 1 precludes. Victory 1. When you defeat an enemy at Into the Jail, instead of discarding that enemy, shuffle it into the lead stack. That is really annoying.
Don't do that.
Yeah, don't do that.
Drag
So
them
again,
somewhere else.
exactly, or just like evade them and run away, kind of thing.
All right, before we do any more, how many, when you've played this, I know it's a hard question to just ask, like how many of these things do you think you get out? How many times do you successfully draw a card from the lead stack that's not an encounter card?
That's a good question. So on our blind playthrough, I believe we got 5 locations out,
Mm-hmm.
and like maybe 1 or 2 of the suspects.
That's pretty good. That's a lot.
That is pretty good. Yeah. We got pretty lucky. I believe we got the location down, but we didn't get the suspects, so we only got half right, and we'll see what happens for that later.
Mm-hmm.
But because we were prioritizing the location, actually, I guess that wouldn't matter because you see the suspects anyway. But yeah, we were for sure prioritizing locations because the first thing we saw was that the locations have victory and the suspects don't. So we're like, why are we even choosing to bring the suspects out?
Right. I think it just depends on how many clues or how quickly you can spend clues. Will determine what you get out here. It's a bit swingy in that respect. Like if all you're doing is spending 3 per clues, that's a lot. I mean, for the first scenario of this campaign, Pit of Despair, you spend 3 per to advance, and there's some overlap with that and getting the keys, but I don't think you need to spend more than probably about, I don't know, 6 or 7 per in that scenario.
Yeah.
And this asks for a lot more if you're going to be drawing like 4 or 5 cards, if you're spending 3 per every time.
Yeah, and I think that one of the things that our blind playthrough did well is that we kind of hammered down a strategy that kind of works to begin with, which is like let's say in the first agenda only.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing we did was try to get to 3 per clues. Like if we were maybe a clue short, then we might just stick with 2. But like at the beginning, we were trying to be like 3 per, 3 per, 3 per the whole time, just to get as much information as possible. And then like once we got to the second agenda, we were like, it doesn't matter at the end of the round, spend as many clues as we have, kind of thing.
Yep.
That did mean that we drew more encounter cards than normal, most likely, near the end. But it meant that we got a ton of information and likely our pick of the litter at the very beginning, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I think especially if you're drawing, like say 3 per, looking at 3 per, and you see the same information again after a little bit, then you're like, I'm desperate. I just need to spend whatever I have, because you can only do it once per round. But I think like what the map looks like right now is more typical for me, that I'll get maybe 4 locations and maybe 1 or 2 of the enemies out.
Yep, totally.
Which isn't bad for victory points, right? If you clear off these 4 locations, that's going to be 4 VP, and maybe there's some more that you'll get later. All right, we should just empty out the lead stack though, just to make the map look like it probably won't, but let's see it anyway.
Got the house on Water Street.
Mm-hmm.
So this is 1 shroud, 2 precludes, victory 1. After you successfully investigate by 3 or more, either draw the top card of the encounter deck or shuffle that card into the lead stack. That's annoying, so don't succeed by too much.
Mm-hmm. It's funny that it's right next to the harbor that is good for doing that.
Yeah.
And that's a good stealth location. Okay.
All right, I got Robert Friendly. Oh, I'm getting close. It might be Bryant.
It might be.
He has to test 2 agility, except that if you fail, you take a damage. That didn't happen with Zadok Allen.
Yes, but it's an easier test.
Correct. All right, we got Joyce Little at the little bookshop. Oh my god, it actually might be him. I have a 50-50 shot at this point. All right, so we have to test willpower 3 to get a clue offer. All right, let's see who this is. Hey, it was Brian!
Yay!
All right, so Barnes Marsh is here at the Marsh Refinery, I assume. Yep. And he is the equivalent to Robert Friendly with willpower.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, remember, these guys are all aloof, so it's you don't have to do anything with them if you draw them.
Yep. And at this point, we know that this location is the missing one. and we could, in theory, guess 100% of the time on our accusation. Which one is this one again? It's the esoteric order of Dagon. That's right.
Yeah.
All right. Shall we advance the agenda just to see what it does?
Gonna add some enemies into the deck, I think.
Yes. So we get the winged one and both of the hunting night gaunts into the encounter deck, as well as the discard pile. And if we have a decision to stick together listed under memories recovered, we get to take control of Thomas Dawson. So Thomas Dawson, here he is.
He's cool.
He is very cool. He does take up an ally slot, but this card says he doesn't, which is very nice. Thank you, game, for not having to do that anymore.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so he takes up an ally slot, ally agency, veteran, 2 health and 3 sanity. You get +1 willpower and +1 combat. Those are great stats. And as a reaction, after an enemy attacks an investigator at your location, even if that attack was canceled, you can exhaust Thomas Dawson to draw a card. That investigator, I should say, draws a card. So some extra card draw.
I feel like they were designing Danielle at the same time as this campaign. Those are her
Maybe,
two
perhaps.
stats too, right?
Those are her 2 stats. Yes, I once got him with what did Leo Anderson, and it's really good with him.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Because you want more cards for allies, and obviously he is an ally,
Mm-hmm.
so you can have extra ones.
And the horror soak here is pretty nice.
Yep.
Cool. Yeah. So he gets to go to some very lucky investigator. And yeah, we got the winged one. We'll see later. Hunting night gaunts you've seen before. You had a nice little allusion to the central location. Well,
yes.
night gaunts are the set that cares about that. So.
And as a reminder, just to remind ourselves, remember that the reason that this happens only because you have a memory for decision to stick together is because you remember that you stick together in Innsmouth to look together. So it's kind of like if you didn't have that memory, it didn't happen. That's why you wouldn't get it. So
that's right.
That's why I like the memories in this one.
Yeah. So I think every scenario, or not everyone, but a lot of them have something that alluded back to the first scenario or one of the previous memories.
All right, agenda, same thing. 7 doom threshold, same force effect, and we should make an accusation before this ticks over. Otherwise, I believe, do we just lose? Yes.
Yeah. Is there any reason to not take up all the time?
No. I believe the answer is no.
Unless you get really lucky and it's you narrow it down, there's probably no reason not to, unless someone's about to die, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess so. Or if you're like it's so likely we'll draw an encounter card and it's like don't want to do that.
You could just have the person who's about to die go resign.
That is true. That is true.
Anyway.
All right.
Let's advance.
Let us make an accusation.
Yeah.
J'accuse. All right, let's go over here. So we have to make an accusation of a suspect in a hideout. So let's say that our accusation was Brian Burnham and Shorewood Slums. We would reveal the suspect in the hideouts. So obviously it is Brian Burnham, but it would be at the esoteric order of Dagon.
So you're telling me that you could, before playing the entirety of this first act or agenda, you can just make a accusation and be half right.
Correct. You could be all right.
You could be all right. We'll talk about that later. But yeah.
Yes. All right. So second bullet point under that first one. If neither card matches your accusation, aka you were 100% incorrect, you must all immediately resign. And that would be the end of the scenario. So that's the end of the scenario. If only one of the 2 cards matches your accusation, the investigators are partially correct and may proceed, but they have angered the citizens of Innsmouth. We would flip over and we would spawn an enemy. It's on the backside of this helper card. It's this guy. Or guys. Or people.
Yep.
Angry Mob. 3/4/3 Hunter Master Retaliate. Angry Mob gets +4 investigator health, but cannot make attacks of opportunity.
Yeah. Don't anger the mob.
Don't anger the mob.
And they spawn right in the middle of the map too, so good luck with that.
Yes. And then obviously if you continue on, we will set up the final act. So we would have an additional act and agenda pop out here. There it is. And we would put the hideout location into play and add an additional 1 per clues to it. That's not the right button. And also we would put the Elina Harper. That's right. We put the Elina Harper story asset underneath the location, kind of like just to say that this is where she's been captured.
Hmm.
But she does not come into play in the scenario.
Nope.
And then we put the suspect also at that location, and that suspect is the kidnapper.
And then you remove the leads deck, including all the encounter cards that were stuck in there.
Correct.
Sorry, victory point enemy, you're there forever.
Oh no! Oh no! That actually has never happened to me. That's
It
sad.
could happen.
Yeah, that could happen for sure. All right, and we have a second act of this scenario. Here we go. We have a 7 Doom agenda and a same force effect. And that's really all it is for the agenda. Very short one.
Mm-hmm.
And we have our act, the rescue. So the kidnapper loses aloof, gets +1 per investigator health, and cannot be parlayed with. And objective. Either the kidnapper is in the victor display, or there are no clues on Elina Harper's location. But if there are 2 more investigators in the game, both conditions must be fulfilled.
Okay, so one thing I want to say is, like the first scenario and like Boundary Beyond, that kind of did something similar with the agendas and acts that were not in play at the beginning.
Yep.
The 7 Doom is insane. I'm either going to do it or I'm going to die within about 2 turns.
Yeah.
So that's funny. I will say, though, because you immediately advance the agenda, you do put a Doom on here right away.
Correct, because that was at the end of the round when we did this accusation. So it's kind of like 6.
It's kind of like 6. So that's okay. But I mean, it's probably not going to go that long because there's maybe the mob, maybe a bunch of other enemies that are stuck around that you didn't bother to clear earlier. But I think this is a neat little second or third act, I guess you could call that. That's second act. Okay, yeah.
And I think honestly, the 6th Doom agenda is mostly just to ensure that if everyone was over here and you have to like get over there now, it like gives some time for that.
Right.
But
I agree with that.
Yeah.
And the mob is probably going to be in the way, so you got to figure out a way to make sure someone evades the mob or you tank it. I don't know. I mean, this is
or like someone could just like stick it on them and tank it. Yeah, it's possible.
Yeah, in 1 or 2 players, I think this is way more of a roadblock.
Agreed.
Okay.
All right. So Brian Burnham, obviously, he would have a parlay effect in the earlier part of the act. You'd have to discard cards to get clues. Obviously, that does not exist now. And then there's also the Esoteric Order of Dagon. After the last remaining clue is discovered from here, remove the top card of the lead deck from the game without looking at it. This is always a fun one. Obviously, at this point, there's no lead deck, so that wouldn't trigger. But in the previous act, if that did happen, that's always the fun one where you're like, so what did we actually get rid of? I have no idea.
Yep. It's true, and you can make a bad guess based on that.
Correct.
Okay. Before we talk about this more, like, how well do you do on your guesses? Like, how far, in order to like keep playing, you have to get one of them right. And I don't know the math of like how many you need to narrow things down to, but usually I can get to like 50-50 on each, or maybe like 3 left on one of them.
Yeah, so I can pretty consistently get to either. So, okay, for specifically either locations or suspects, I can pretty consistently get it down to between knowing it 100% or 50-50. And so, usually what happens to me is the most likely outcome is that I have it 50-50 either on both or just on one.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, I would say like 50% of the time, I will get to this part of the scenario because I have at least one of them correct down pat.
Yeah.
And like sometimes I'm like, oh, I get both. Like I've never had it where I know perfect information.
Nope.
It has literally never happened to me.
Yep, me neither.
So it's always either 50-50 with at least one of them. I think there was one time where it was 50-50 both times. And then we didn't get to the last bit of this. So that was because we guessed wrong on both. Mm-hmm. Or maybe it was actually 50 and 33, like 1 and 2 and 1 and 3. That was a rough time, that one.
It can happen. I mean, if you keep seeing the exact same cards from the leads deck, you are like, well, that was a waste of clues and time. So
yeah,
what am I supposed to do, right?
Yeah.
And that's, I think, where this scenario, we'll talk about more later, but it starts to be a little bit, feels bad for some groups because there's not much you can do about that.
Yep. Agreed.
Okay. But if we do manage to either get all the clues or kill the guy who has extra health, or both if we have more than just one player, we get to advance.
Yeah. So they have this nice little thing where they have a different resolution for whom was the kidnapper. So in this case, we would go to R2, as Brian Burnham was the kidnapper.
Boy, they stuck a lot of text into this campaign guide,
They,
didn't they?
they absolutely did. First of all, if you resigned, aka you resigned or you failed, you go to this no resolution was reached, and you go to R1, and so you get to do some stuff. The mission failed, and you still go to the interlude, but the mission failed.
Mm-hmm.
All right. For us, it's R2. So get to talk with Brian, and what does he tell us? We don't know. Right. We only know what he tells us in the interlude. That's right. All right. And the mission was successful.
Yep. And that really just means whether or not you get to add Elina Harper to your deck, which we could just
Correct.
do right now, I think.
Yeah. So
She's
she
pretty
is an
good.
ally. She is very good. She is analog to Thomas Dawson. She gives you the other stats, intellect and agility, and she gives you this crazy ability, which is the first action you perform each turn does not provoke a tax opportunity. This is Trish Scarborough's like
Best friend.
lover. Yes.
Yep.
I was gonna say. Um, it's so good. Like they had to taboo the Prophesier Profana to be this ability, and it's still good. So
Yeah. And
yeah,
you'll never get both of them in the same scenario. So the
correct.
fact that
They're on different timelines.
yeah, they're in different timelines. So the fact that they kind of have opposite abilities and stats and all is on purpose. Cool. Before we go, the scenario reference card has some information about the tokens. You probably have all of them. You have to have all of them, right? Because you can only remove one of the
Minimum at least one of the cultist tablet other
yeah.
things.
They're not too bad. There are a bunch of if you fail effects. Uh, I guess the cultist could cause you to put doom on one of the suspects.
True. Yeah. Then you'd probably want to kill them or parlay against them.
Huh. Anyway, um, the elder thing is kind of bad.
Yeah, the other thing is rough. Obviously you don't want to put the clues back down on the victory locations, and you also need those clues to accuse. But putting them down on the non-victory is like not the worst thing in the world.
It's not, but there's also, as we'll see in the encounter deck, things that care about you having clues or not having clues. So that I think is just kind of part of the design of this type of scenario. Of there's a push pull between you spending clues or keeping them so you can make the accusations, or rather look through the lead stack a little bit better.
Yep.
All right. Yeah, I mean, I find that the end of this scenario is usually okay if you have the mob, it's worse. But it also is a little bit worse if you have left a bunch of enemies on the board, which you may or may not have been able to clean up in time. So let's take a look at the encounter deck to see what those enemies look like.
Yes. All right. So let us go through some new encounter cards here.
Mhm.
I don't know what these are called.
These are agents of Dagon, I believe.
Yeah, that's right. All right. So we have the Initiate of Dagon, 2/1/2 humanoid hybrid cultist. It spawns at any empty location. When it has no doom on it, it gets +2 fight, +2 evade. And at the end of the round, if it's ready and there's no doom on it, you put a doom on it. So these are the acolytes analogs in this campaign.
Mm-hmm.
I actually really like their design. It's really cool. Like if you have a way to deal damage to them with 4 fight or 4 evade or in a free way, they're basically like they don't actually have doom on them, which is nice. But if you can afford to wait around, then you can just kill them afterwards, and they're like a normal enemy at that point.
Yeah, they're a lot easier to hit, but the problem is if you wait to the end of the round and then you put doom and then the agenda advances because of that, that's pretty bad. It's also funny when you draw them during the witching hour because then they get the doom and then immediately lose it. Doesn't lose you any time, but then you have to wait yet another round for them to get doom to make them easier to kill. So
Correct.
cool design for sure.
Yes. And much cooler than the Priest of Dagon. Because he's a lot more annoying. He has 3/2/3. He also spawns at any empty location. And when he would be defeated or evaded, if there is no doom on him, you instead heal all damage from it, ready it, and place a doom on it. And then it has the same thing where at the end of the round, if it's ready and there's no doom on it, you place a doom on it. So this one is different where it's not that it's harder to kill them or evade them if they have no doom. It's you literally can't kill them if they have no doom. You have to kill them twice effectively.
Mm-hmm.
Or you wait around and then it effectively kills them once if that happens. But then you're like, if the round that you wait causes you to advance, it's like, well, is it worth it to try and just kill this guy twice to be able to avoid that, right?
Yeah, I find these are interesting to decide where you're going to spawn them for that reason. They kind of protect a location because you kept a wait. You can evade them. I think this is a pretty good target if you're running like a dirty fighting deck.
Yeah, that's true.
Then you can just basically ignore that text. But I agree that causes some difficulty. There's only one of them though. At least there's three of the other guys.
Correct. They're like the Wizard of the Order.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. We will see them again, but we will also see very soon this group of what are they called? The locals or something?
Yeah, I think they are called the locals. That is correct.
All right.
So we got the Innsmouth Troublemaker 432 humanoid hybrid criminal. It spawns at the location with the most clues. That can sometimes be annoying, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe not. It has Hunter, and as an action, you can place a clue, one of your clues on your location to parlay the Innsmouth Troublemaker. It exhausts it, and it doesn't ready during the next upkeep phase. And it may be triggered by an investigator at a connecting location, which is interesting. Yes, this is an interesting enemy.
The 2 damage though, you can see he's carrying a big stick with nails in it. That you need to do something with this guy because since he usually spawns, not always, but sometimes spawns in a location that's not yours, and he's got Hunter, you need to figure out how to deal with a 4-fight enemy.
Yeah, I feel like maybe it's just me, but I rarely actually use that parlay ability. I feel like it just kind of just delays things, and also it does impede your progress, which is rough.
Mm-hmm.
But like, I try to kill these guys as fast as I can.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it's fine in maybe the next scenario, but
Yeah,
this
that's
one,
true.
the map is so small.
Yeah, agreed.
I like the idea. I'm so curious how Alessandra plays in this scenario with all these parlays
Yeah,
on stuff.
yeah, that's true.
Okay.
All right, we got the Innsmouth look. Look at that art; it's really it's hilarious.
All this
Um,
hybrid stuff going on, and maybe it's you now.
Maybe it's you. So, put into play the third area. You get -1 intellect and -1 sanity, and you gain the deep one trait. And as an action, you can test 3 willpower to discard it. Thank goodness that it didn't test 3 intellect. It's not like the Dreams of Relier. You have a chance to pass this if you have good willpower.
Yeah. What if you have this one and Dreams of Relier?
Oh gosh.
Maybe we'll
does that
find
actually
it does. Yeah. Next
that
scenario.
does happen? Yeah, that's rough.
Mm-hmm. There's 2 of these. I think this one, as you said, is all right.
Yeah.
But this is a very much a clue heavy scenario. So if this bugs you, then you got to get rid of it.
That's true. All right, we got the Furtive Locals. This is one of those cards that's weird. So, test 3 intellect. If you succeed, you either take a damage or put it in next to the agenda deck. If you fail, you do both. This is one of the weird cards where it doesn't. If you fail, you do something. If you succeed, do nothing. It's if you fail, do 2 things. If you succeed, do only one of them, and it's your choice. It's like one of the few times they've ever done this.
Yeah,
Anyway.
we're about to see the other one.
Correct.
But you're right.
All right.
This is a tough one to remember what it does. You got to read through it like every time.
Yes. So if you put it into play next to your agenda deck, the static ability below will be happening, which is that investigators cannot parlay. At the end of the round, you can discard a copy of this. But importantly, the thing on the leads deck thing is a parlay, so that stops you from doing that.
Yep. Where'd it go? That's
it's the X gone.
all right. Okay. Yeah. If you're getting multiples of these round after round, I think that's
pretty rough.
That's pretty bad.
Yep. All right, we got the Winged one, which only happens during the second and potentially third agendas. 3/5X creature monster hunter. X is the shroud value of Winged One's location. Winged One takes 1 fewer damage from attacks, except by ranged firearm or spell cards, to a minimum of 1 damage. This is a cool way to do the whole Dunwich Legacy prefer attacking with ranged firearm or spell things.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, it can be rough, but I like the ability to be like, you requires these particular weapons in order to deal better damage to them. But also, you could just attack it 5 times, I guess, and it wouldn't be so bad.
Mm-hmm. You could also just evade it usually and get away, but it's your victory point enemy. You want to kill it.
Yep.
Yeah, I think it's fine. And then we've got a,
Fog over Innsmouth.
yep,
So this is similar to the Furtive Locals, where it has the 3 willpower, and you either take a horror or put it next to your deck, or do both if you fail. And it gives you a blanket +1 shroud for all locations. So this is hard to remember sometimes, and honestly, I feel like it doesn't do much either, but maybe it could, I guess.
and we do have obscuring fog here too, so it could give some locations +3 if you're unlucky.
True, it's
But
a lot of fog.
it also, yeah, I mean, it combos with the winged one too, which is neat.
That is true.
Kind
Hard to
of. I
avoid.
mean,
Yeah,
those are the new cards. I think they work very well with what we're trying to do in this scenario, and the rest of them do too. I think it's a pretty, again, standard get clues, spend them, maybe. So night gaunts are here. Small
Yep.
map makes them tough.
yeah. The 4 health is, as always, rough.
hmm On Wings of Darkness, I think is also just okay because the middle location is kind of where you want to go anyway most of the time.
Correct. So this is similar to Midnight Mass, where sometimes you actually want to draw this, and it can be nice because also potentially from there you can have a 2 resource discount to travel anywhere. So that's
Exactly.
nice as well.
Was it connecting or just to any location?
Oh, connecting.
Yeah, connecting. Okay. Yeah, so it's not horrible, but the damage does there's a lot of damage in this one. If you ever let the Innsmouth Troublemaker hit you,
Yeah.
then everything else starts to add up because the next set we're looking at here has Hunting Shadow.
And yeah, Haunting Shadow's rough. It's always rough, but this one's rough as well because you really need those clues to spend.
You do.
And yeah, I think that it's sorry. Just one more thing on Hunting Shadow about spending clues in this one
Mhm.
is that in Midnight Masks, ultimately all it does it just reduces your chance to seeing or to getting more of the whatever they're called. I forgot what cultists in
Yeah.
that scenario. Which, to be fair, is obviously bad for the third scenario. But this one is that it leads you to get less locations out, which also gives you like less clues to get more things, which also leads to less victory. So it's like a even more of a snowballing effect.
And the end of this scenario requires you to actually hit at least one of the 2 different things from the leads deck. So,
Yeah.
or from the accusation. So this putting you behind, it's not like Midnight Mask where it's like, well, you don't get all 6. That wasn't really expected anyway. That's okay.
Yeah.
False Lead here, I think, is kind of a similar story. It's a tough card if you have some clues and you aren't a seeker who's got a big intellect score. So
Yeah. It's rough. At least it doesn't spend them, obviously, but it can drop like 2 or 3 clues, and that's like it feels like you wasted it. It's like you might as well have drawn like an Ancient Eagles, basically.
So this is probably fine on lower player counts because you just spend them immediately as soon as you get them. So you don't have this problem, I guess.
Yep.
Can you do the parlay during the Mythos phase or only during the investigation phase?
It is any time there's a free triggered window, I believe. Yep.
So you could do it during that test and then just not drop any clues.
That is true.
That's funny.
Yeah. You have to spend like if you like let's say 4 players, if you only have 3 clues, then you wouldn't be able to do it. But you have to spend at least 1 per clues. So
As long as the investigators as a group have one of those thresholds.
correct. Yes.
That's okay. So you could get a free encounter card here because it won't gain surge if you're doing
true.
it
True.
during the test.
That's tricky.
Hot tech.
Hot tech. You might draw a different encounter card.
Well, okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
All right. Obscuring fog, I think, is pretty weak here because you're often going to empty locations off of clues, and that's going to do nothing when it shows up. Higher player counts maybe a little bit harder.
Yeah. Alrighty. Crypt Trail, as always, it's bad, but not the end of the world. But it's bad.
Yeah. And then Locked Door, also pretty typical of this kind of scenario.
Yeah, same thing with Midnight Mass. Locked Door can be annoying, and sometimes it changes your game plan. We're like, okay, we're not going that way. But yeah.
So we've
Honestly,
got good tests for basically every stat here. So that's nice, I guess.
yeah, they got every stat on.
All right. Anything else you want to talk about for this one?
No, let's get into our ratings.
Is there anything from the
Oh,
interlude that we need to mention, or
I
are we
think it's
just
just you either get her or you don't.
okay? The
Yeah.
successful, you get her. Otherwise, no. And then you can spend your experience at the end of this one as well.
Yes.
Sounds good. All right. Okay. We do have some ratings to give. Replayability, right off the bat, we could say, hey, it's going to be someone different every time you play, probably. Anything else we could say about that?
So I think the leads deck is where most of the replayability comes from. Where like the order in which you get the locations out, for example, or if you're forced to be like, oh, I need to parlay Zadok Allen to get the clues that I need,
Mm-hmm.
can really change things. Obviously, there's some replayability in the fact that there's a it's fun to be like, oh, we got both of them correct this time, and not have to deal with the angry mob, for example.
Mm-hmm. I do think that that's true, that there's a little bit of like, can you do even better next time? But I've never felt like that, it's not like Midnight Masks or others where I feel a sense of accomplishment by doing more. I always feel like it's like, thank God. I just don't feel
Yeah,
like this is more on the next slide, I suppose, but I don't feel like I'm incentivized to do well in this one based on like, let's play again and do better because we can make better choices. I just don't think that is part of the RNG of this one.
yeah. I think part of that is specifically about Midnight Mass. Like the victory condition from Midnight Mass ranges from 1 to 6.
Hmm.
Because like you got one cultist, two cultists, three cultists, four cultists, all that stuff. The victory condition for this is if you needed to get 5 to 6 cultists, that would be the equivalent to being able to win at this scenario
Yeah.
in Midnight Mass. It requires a lot more of you, and the last inch of the victory, I agree. It feels like why do I even need to go that? It's so hard to just get to the ending
Hmm.
to begin with, right?
Okay, but otherwise, I mean, yeah, there's the typical order of things coming out, and that does make things different. But I do think compared to the last one, because the first locations that are on the map are always the same, and once you know again, once you play again and you know what they do, as we said, you kind of go over to the right side of the map and deal with those locations first.
Yeah, that's true.
So
Um,
I'll rate this one first. I think it's like a 3.5.
yeah, I think I'll go a little higher. I'll go with a 4. I've always felt like this scenario played out differently a lot each time for me. Um, Maybe that's just because I have like interesting stories to tell with it about like the different people, the different places.
Hmm.
But yeah,
I do think the enemies are. It's a fairly well designed scenario where the enemies do make you shake up some of that
yeah,
play pattern. If you get the the cultists or not, the troublemakers spawning in different places, that can change things. But ultimately, the core of the gameplay of what you're trying to do doesn't change. I think it's just much more reactive to enemies rather than say your objective.
fair.
All right, let's go on to the next one, which is on fairness and probably a lot to say here. So we can throw up the clue accusation, as it were now. Um, are you still playing Arkham? I guess in the sense of using your cards to do the thing your deck wants to do and making decisions based on what Arkham wants you to do, rather than being at the mercy of what's in that little closed envelope in Clue.
Right. So I'll say this, right? If we compare this to the other scenario that is much like a different board game, aka In the Clutches of Chaos from the Circle Undone, which is
Hmm.
very similar to Pandemic, um, I would say that this scenario is much more like Arkham than that scenario. You are still going around, getting clues, fighting enemies, trying to deal with things from the Mythos deck, and ultimately the only clue aspect is the deductive reasoning required to be like, oh, because this card is in the lead deck, it's not the suspect or the kidnapper.
Hmm.
That's all it is, right? And to me, I really enjoyed this scenario in my blind playthrough, and I still really enjoy it because it doesn't overhaul the system, like in the Clutches of Chaos. That is
That's right.
basically like an entire overhaul of the game,
That's right.
right?
That does not make you. I mean, there's no Doom, right? There doesn't make you use your cards in the same way. Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree with that completely.
Yes. That being said, I do agree that at least for an Arkham scenario, this scenario adds a level of variance that is unexpected. It adds a lot of variance that doesn't feel that can feel bad. Notably, I think that the most egregious part of this is similar to the Return to the Forgotten Age explore mechanic.
Yeah.
Putting encounter cards into the lead stack is so annoying. Um, Honestly, I feel like it would have been really interesting to be like, instead of putting cards into the lead stack, they do something else. Like, I don't know what, but like something that they could have done to just dilute the chances that you're going to see cards again. But like, you already kind of have that by spending a lot of clues to see cards you've already seen. But I don't know, like maybe like a discard a card from your hand at random and put in the lead stack, right? So you lost something, you have to go find it, right?
Mhm.
And like all those cards could have like player card back, so you can see what it is. I don't know. Like I think that there's a lot of things they could have done rather than just putting encounter cards in there to be like, oh, you spent 4 clues for no reason, kind of like in the Forgotten. It sometimes feels like we're gonna spend these clues to draw an extra encounter card, and
And
that can feel bad.
it's a much bigger ask, right? To get. I mean, so in the Forgotten Age, yeah, you draw an encounter card. That's pretty bad, but it was just one action, right?
Yeah,
And that can cause some problems in that campaign. But this one, imagine being in 4 player and you spend what, 12 clues,
yeah,
and you see like, I don't know, 2 things that you've already seen and then an encounter card. You're like, well, I guess I'll take this enemy that does nothing, right? And
yeah.
now I'm set so far back to making progress to looking at the encounter deck or at the leads deck again. I think that's where the miss is here, is that they, I mean, yeah, maybe you could say like, okay, just get 1 per and look at the top card. Well, now you're drawing an encounter card maybe because you just added an extra one in.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's something about that rubs me the wrong way as far as the amount of progress you make to the payoff.
Correct. I also think that they could have done something about the reward for accusing correctly. So I always like this thing where it does feel awkward, where if you guess incorrectly, you just lose the scenario. Because to me, that might be part of why people feel like this scenario is too much like Clue, because it hinges you playing the game on you getting the clue correct.
And you just guess.
Correct. If they instead did like, if you got neither of them wrong, the angry mob shows up and maybe make the enemy worse somehow. If you got one of them correct, it's normal. And if you got both correct, you can just end the scenario. I think that would feel a lot better. Where you're like, we got both of them correct so well that we knew exactly where they were, we knew who it was, and therefore we could just like suss it out and deal with them immediately. Without having to be like, oh, we don't know who it is. We have to go traipse them down back to where they are, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like, I feel like they could have done something like that to reward players to actually do the clue thing, as opposed to punishing them for not doing the clue thing, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I think that they'd have to make it a little bit easier too. I wonder what the playtesting was like of this one, because I find that making the 100%, certain is what you should be doing, and guessing correctly randomly, which is what you ultimately end up doing, is weird. Like
Yeah.
that's the part where it feels less like Arkham to me. That generally you aren't just making, it's not a wild guess, but you're not making guesses.
And it, again, I think part of the charm of this scenario is the fact that the guess is real, that it is a real guess.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it could be that, like, again, I think that basically they shouldn't have put in a fail state that didn't let you play a third of the scenario.
Yeah.
Um,
You know what's funny? If you are forced to resign and you have clues, you'll just drop them on victory point locations.
you're right, exactly. That's pretty awkward.
Uh,
So yeah, and I think again, part of the fairness of this, well, actually, we didn't even talk about this, is the fact that the suspects don't have victory. Because
right.
it really feels like the suspects have no, like, you have literally almost zero incentive to pick them out of the deck if you could pick a location, right?
Yeah,
Um,
again, I'm very curious what happened in playtesting. I wonder if they ever had victory points. Maybe people like tried to kill them because that was easier than getting their clues off or something.
right. But again, maybe like if they just had a worse like fail state for killing them, like they already have the out for blood thing. Like if they made that an actual incentive not to do that, then I think that would have been fine. But it's
Hmm.
kind of nebulous because we don't know actually what that's for at this point, right?
Yeah. Yep. That's true. Okay. Are you comfortable making a rating here?
Yes. With all that in mind, I think that again, as I said, part of the problem with the scenario is that there's a lot of variance that doesn't use to it, but I don't think it's in the clutch of the chaos unfair. I'm gonna give it a 3.
I was thinking three also. Um, because ultimately, until you get to that point, like towards the end of the scenario where you've stacked the lead stack with a bunch of encounter cards you don't want to draw, it feels very normal. Like the game is doing kind of what it should do in terms of everything else. Uh, it's just the end feels a little bit bad. Um, just to be different, I'm going to give it a 2.5. I just think that as you said, the resolution to making a guess should be a little bit more in your hands. Not entirely. It just, I agree that like the whole conceit of this is make a guess, but if they let you keep playing or let you or made it a little bit easier to get to that end point, then I feel like that would be better.
Yeah, I agree.
The couple actions that you can use to like look at the top of the lead stack, I've never done that. It sounds like a good idea, but it seems like couldn't you just be doing something else with your turn? Two actions seems like a lot. Wouldn't it be cool if you could spend clues to I don't know, to do that without having to shuffle in the uh the encounter card?
That's interesting. Trying to avoid it. Yeah, yeah. Like there's yeah, I can see that.
Once per game or something. I don't know. Something that
Yeah,
allows you to kind of a last ditch effort, not be a total crapshoot, I guess.
yeah.
I don't know. Okay. Next one is on balance. Last time we talked about how this feels like there's not much to talk about this in the campaigns anymore since they've done a better job. So I think we'll make this pretty brief. I don't think there's anything special here either.
No, I actually think that this one is fairly balanced, as we stated previously. Like, there's a lot of things that's going on that a lot of people can contribute to. Every stat is fairly represented, as we've said, not only in counter cards but also in the parlays. There's agility parlays and willpower parlays. There's
Hmm.
parlays to spend resources or discard cards if you need to get clues that way. And the fighters always have something to do. I've never had them not have something to do.
Yep.
Um,
Totally agree. But
yeah.
you're right. Like there's no I don't think there's any parlays that are intellect. You just that's what getting clues is for.
Yeah, I think that maybe this scenario does incentivize like getting a bajillion clues as fast as you can, which maybe is a balance thing. Like there's you really cannot rest on your laurels when it comes to like getting as many clues as you can. This I don't know, maybe because it feels very tempo heavy.
Hmm.
But like if you're an investigator or a seeker that can like get like 4 clues in one action, you're gonna be really really good at this one. You can like make an accusation with 2 or 3x like every round if you can. Um, but maybe that's just normally how this game works, right?
I think
Um,
so.
yeah. Um, I don't know why I don't feel like giving it a 5. I'm just gonna give it a 4.5, and I'm not explaining myself.
Okay. I'll give it a 5.
All right.
All right, last one. We've touched on the experience of the game itself. It did present something new and interesting, at least as far as what you do to progress the objective. I mean, I guess the first scenario was like this too, where it's one act and, well, not one act, but it was close to that. It was like, just do something else on another encounter card. And this one is sort of similar in the sense that it is progressing through spending clues, but nothing really happens when you advance other than making the accusation.
Yeah. All right. So as for experience, I think that ignoring the potential unfairness of this scenario,
Hmm.
I really like this scenario. I think that I think that this is one of the first ones where I was really excited with the outside Arkham elements, namely the clue stuff. Like I this is maybe controversial. I wanted him to do more stuff like this. This is like a way to really flex their design muscles to make a game that is as good as Arkham,
Hmm.
also play like a different game while still feeling like Arkham. I think that Clue is exceptionally well suited because obviously it already is, steeped in the traditions of like detective stuff,
Hmm.
and that Arkham is already like that. But like, I think that this scenario really expertly weaves that theming and those mechanics into the game. Perhaps there could have been tweaking on very small things about like the reward structure and the incentives, but I think that ultimately it was a huge success when it comes to maybe adapting Clue to this game. Um, so I'm gonna put it at a 5, and this may be controversial and maybe the first time we fully disagree on something, but I love this scenario.
I'm actually not going to disagree completely. So I agree with you. Like it's really just that they could have tweaked it to work out a little bit better. I've played other fan campaigns that have tried to do other sort of deduction type goals
Yeah.
to varying success. I think this was pretty simple. The idea that you're just digging through the one leads deck and that's it, I think is fine. I've played a scenario once that was more complicated where you had to like go through several layers of like a deck just
Yeah.
to see if you were doing the right thing or not. It wasn't just like flip one card over, it was like flip three cards over. And once you get to the third
Imagine
card,
if
it'll tell you.
if there was another set of 6 cards, which is the murder weapons.
Yeah, that's true. So I feel like this is still in bounds of Arkham because it ultimately doesn't get away from the basic gameplay loop. It's just that your goal ends up looking a bit different. You're still going around spending clues. The timing part, I think, is really good. Strong part of the scenario compared to um, other ones because you can only search through that deck once per round. Sometimes you can't because of the furtive locals, I think it is. That is cool. And as I said at the beginning, the fact that it is a parlay, it does feel like you're going around trying to dig up information about who kidnapped Eleanor Harper. Hmm.
So where are you gonna rate it?
Yeah. Um, it's funny because last time I talked about a way to kind of fix one of the issues I have with the flashback mechanics. I don't really have a better way to do this other than just a few tweaks to
Yeah.
how the resolutions work. Uh, I don't mind the scenario either. Um, as far as like the gameplay experience, I'm not going to give it a 5 just because of what I said earlier about how, and I'm trying not to be unfair and ding it twice for the scenario twice for the same reason, but I do sort of dread the end of this one just
Right.
because if it's tough or you just guess the wrong thing, I do feel like it's a little bit of a feels bad. I was a little bit of a joke earlier, but not really, where I said, look, we didn't have to play the whole game and you would have gotten one of the guesses correct with Brian Burnham,
Right.
right? And maybe the game shouldn't do that or you be allowed to do that. I don't know.
I think that's fair. Yeah. I mean, again, it's all variants. Like, yeah, if you really wanted to, you could just end the first round and try a guess, and you could just skip the scenario.
Well, especially with how random the VP is, if you can't get the VP locations out that often, you do feel like, why did I play?
Yeah, and again, I think that's why I'm like the real issues with the scenario is just the incentives. Like, I think the core mechanic of the leads deck is really, really cool.
Mhm,
It's just the incentives. It's just the fact that they're punishing you for particular things. But like, I love the core concept.
mhm. And there's definitely something there with the math of okay, how many times do I uh, do the parlay versus adding in counter cards? I kind of like that part of it. I just wish that it weren't so. I mean, if the rewards were better, or if the fact that you could just end up drawing three encounter cards from the deck, even if you spend 12 clues, you're like, ah,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay. Well, I think that's about it for this week. As usual, thank you for people who have supported the channel. Consider subscribing, all that. If you enjoy this content, it is long form content, and I thank you again, Superfang, for sitting with me for a few hours to talk about scenarios every few weeks. It is a lot of fun, and I know some people really enjoy this kind of thing because we do a deep dive, and I don't think there's too much content out there that's like that in video format. But I also would recommend to anyone who loves thinking about the scenario design, if you look at Derby K's website, Ancient Evils, he's got so much info there that is good for reading if you like reading about this kind of thing. All right, we'll see you next week.
Goodbye.